Ella had always loved the mountains. The way the crisp air seemed to fill her lungs, and the endless horizon reminded her of freedom. That morning she set off alone on a hike through the Rocky Mountains. Her backpack light, her spirits high.
Oof,
the
that
sun
was
had
cold.
just begun to climb over the
Okay, I'm
jagged
all right.
peaks, turning the snow into a glittering sea of white. She felt unstoppable, unaware that nature was preparing a harsh lesson. By midday, dark clouds began to gather, blotting out the sun. The temperature dropped suddenly, and a cold wind bit at her cheeks. She quickened her pace, hoping to reach a small ridge she had spotted on the trail map. But the snow, fresh and powdery, was already knee-deep in places. Each step became heavier, exhausting her legs and draining her energy. Then it happened. The blizzard struck with sudden ferocity. Snow whipped across her face, stinging her eyes, and the trail she had followed vanished beneath an endless, white curtain. Panic gripped her chest. She tried to retrace her steps, but the world had turned into a swirling, featureless maze. Every sound was muffled. Every direction looked the same. Her heart pounded and fear clawed at her throat. She stumbled over a hidden rock and tumbled hard into the snow. Twisting, her ankle, pain shot through her leg. Sharp and unforgiving, she tried to pull herself up, but her hands were numb and her boots offered no grip. Tears blurred her vision as she realized how alone she truly was. Shivering uncontrollably, she curled into herself, desperately hoping for a miracle, any sign that help might come. And then she saw him at first. She thought it was a trick of her freezing mind, a shadow moving against the white storm. But no, he was real. A man appeared through the blizzard, his coat heavy, his boots sinking into the snow. With purposeful steps, he approached her cautiously, but with confidence, his movements precise and strong. Ella's instinct screamed both warning and relief. She didn't know him, yet somehow she felt that she could trust him with her life. He knelt beside her, his hand steady as he assessed her injury. "Can you walk?" he asked, his voice calm but urgent. Ella shook her head, unable to speak through the teeth-chattering cold. Without hesitation, he lifted her carefully, adjusting her weight over his shoulder. Each step he took was measured. Sure as they navigated the treacherous terrain together, she clung to him, feeling a mixture of fear, awe, and an inexplicable pull toward this stranger. As they moved, snow continued to fall in thick curtains, muffling the world beyond their small bubble of survival. Ella caught glimpses of his face, a strong jawline, storm-gray eyes, and an intensity that hinted at secrets, danger, and perhaps a life far more complicated than hers. She didn't know it yet. But the man who had appeared like an angel in the blizzard was not just a rescuer. He was a millionaire on the run, hiding from enemies who would kill for the fortune he possessed. And tonight, fate had thrown them together. Two strangers bound by snow, peril, and the unspoken promise of something extraordinary. The cabin was small but cozy, tucked among snow-laden pines, its wooden walls offering refuge from the raging blizzard outside. He gently lowered Ella onto a worn sofa near the fire, which crackled and sent waves of warmth through the room. Her shivering slowed, but her hands and feet still felt frozen, and the ache in her ankle pulsed sharply with each heartbeat. He removed her wet gloves and scarf, wrapping her in a thick wool coat he carried. "Drink this," he said, handing her a steaming mug of cocoa. Ella accepted it with trembling hands, the warmth spreading from her fingers to her chest. She sipped cautiously the sweet liquid, bringing some comfort amidst the lingering terror of the storm. She studied him cautiously, the firelight dancing across his sharp features. He seemed almost too composed, too calm given the snowstorm outside. Every movement carried a quiet strength, an air of control that contrasted sharply with her panic earlier. "I thank you," she said finally, her voice weak but sincere. "I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't come." He shrugged slightly, not revealing much. "You were lucky," he said. Luck and timing. There was a shadow in his eyes, something unsaid, a weight he carried silently. Ella frowned. "Who are you?" she asked, curiosity overcoming her caution. He hesitated, looking into the fire as if searching for the right words. The crackling flames seemed to echo in the silence that followed. "I'm not exactly who you think I am," he finally admitted, his voice low. "I've made some enemies, people who want what I have." I'm running. His words were careful, controlled, yet there was an edge of danger. Ella's heart raced, not with fear alone, but with a mixture of fascination. She had rescued novels filled with heroics in her mind before, but this was real. This man, a stranger, was entangled in a life that was far more complex and dangerous than she could imagine. "I see," she said slowly, unsure how to respond. Trust did not come easily, but his presence felt oddly reassuring despite the danger. There was a comfort in being with someone so capable, so composed, in a world that had suddenly become uncertain and frightening. He moved around the cabin, placing fresh firewood on the hearth and checking the windows, ensuring the storm wouldn't breach their temporary sanctuary. Ella watched quietly, noting the tension in his shoulders, the way his eyes constantly scanned, alert for threats. It was clear he was not just a man of wealth, but a man shaped by necessity, danger, and experience. As the evening wore on, conversation between them became easier. He told fragments of his story: betrayal by trusted partners, a fortune stolen from under his nose, a relentless pursuit by dangerous men. Ella listened, caught between disbelief and awe. Slowly, the fear she had felt when lost in the blizzard began to fade, replaced by an unexpected fascination. She realized that the stranger who had saved her was more than a rescuer. He was a man with secrets, danger, and a vulnerability that mirrored her own. Outside, snow continued to fall in thick, muffling waves inside. The firelight and quiet conversations created a fragile world of warmth and trust, and though neither of them said it aloud, something was shifting. A connection forming in the isolation of the storm, a bond forged by survival, danger, and the unspoken possibility of more. The storm outside showed no sign of letting up, leaving the cabin cocooned in silence, broken only by the crackle of the fire and the occasional gust rattling the windows. Inside, the tension between Ella and the mysterious man began to shift. The adrenaline from the rescue had faded, leaving a more subtle, complicated energy in its place. Curiosity, fascination, and a quiet acknowledgement of vulnerability mingled in the small, dimly lit room. He moved around the cabin with a practiced efficiency, preparing a simple meal from supplies stored in a wooden cupboard. Ella watched him, captivated by the ease and precision of his movements. It was clear he had lived a life far removed from hers, a life of wealth, danger, and constant alertness. Yet in this temporary sanctuary, he allowed himself a small measure of domesticity, and she found herself strangely drawn to the contrast between the danger outside and the calm inside. When he sat across from her at the small wooden table, he finally let down a fraction of the wall around him. "I've been running for months," he admitted quietly, stirring his tea. "Absent-mindedly, enemies who don't forgive, people who would take everything from me if they could. I lost more than money, I lost trust." His voice carried a weariness that went beyond exhaustion, a deep ache that resonated with Ella in ways she didn't expect. She leaned forward, intrigued and concerned. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked, almost whispering. His eyes met hers, and for a moment the weight of secrecy lifted, revealing raw honesty beneath the guarded exterior. "Because you saved me as much as I saved you," he said. "And because, well, you deserve the truth, at least a piece of it." Ella swallowed, feeling a mixture of disbelief and empathy. The man before her was no ordinary stranger. He was a fugitive, a millionaire whose life had been shattered by betrayal. Yet he had carried her through the blizzard with unwavering, common strength. She felt a strange pull toward him, an inexplicable bond forming in the isolation of snow, fire, and shared vulnerability. They talked for hours, carefully peeling back layers of their lives. Ella shared fragments of her own story, her dreams, fears, and the freedom she sought in the mountains. Laughter came slowly but naturally, a brief escape from the tension and fear that had dominated the day. In these moments, the cabin became more than a refuge. It was a place of connection, a fragile space where trust and intimacy could begin to grow. The storm outside raged on, turning the world into a silent, frozen expanse inside. However, there was warmth not just from the fire, but from the quiet understanding forming between them. The danger, the secrets, the blizzard, all of it had forced them into proximity. But it was the shared humanity, the small acts of care, and the acknowledgement of vulnerability that were binding them together. As night deepened, the wind howled against the cabin, yet Ella no longer felt alone. For the first time since the blizzard struck, she felt a sense of calm, a strange but welcome connection to the man who had appeared like a guardian angel. In the snow, what had begun as a rescue was evolving into something more complicated, something that neither of them could yet name, but both felt profoundly by morning. The storm had finally begun to ease. The snow outside glistened under a pale winter sun, a breathtakingly beautiful but harsh landscape that stretched endlessly across the Rockies. The world was quiet, almost surreal, as if the blizzard had frozen time itself. Ella sat by the window, sipping the last of her cocoa, her ankles still throbbing, but her heart lighter than it had been in hours. He emerged from the small kitchen area, carrying a simple breakfast of bread, fruit, and hot tea, even in casual clothes. His presence was commanding, and Ella felt that familiar pull she couldn't explain. There was a quiet intensity about him, a mixture of danger and vulnerability that made her pulse quicken. She had survived the night because of him, But somewhere deeper she realized she had been changed by him too. "I can guide you back down the trail," he said, setting the tray down on the table. "The snow has softened in places, and it should be safe to walk." His voice was calm, but there was an unspoken weight in his words. He could leave at any moment, resume his life of constant flight. Yet here he was, still with her. Still present. Ella looked at him, torn. She wanted safety, wanted to return to her familiar life. But a strange reluctance gripped her. This brief, intense encounter had left a mark. A memory that would never fade. I don't want to leave," she admitted quietly, almost to herself. His gray eyes softened, and for a fleeting moment, the hardened exterior she had seen for 2 nights vanished, revealing the man beneath. "We can leave together," he said, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "But once we step out of this snow, the world will pull us back to reality. You'll have your life, I'll have mine. And it won't be simple." His honesty was disarming. There was danger. Yes, but also something else, a connection neither could ignore. They prepared to leave the cabin, he supporting her carefully. As she took her first tentative steps on the crisp snow, the sun reflected off the ice, turning the mountains into a dazzling, almost magical landscape. Ella felt the wind on her face, fresh and biting yet invigorating with each step. She realized how fragile and fleeting moments like these could be, moments where danger, trust, and unexpected companionship collided to create something unforgettable. As they walked together through the sparkling white expanse, the silence between them was comfortable, filled with unspoken understanding. She glanced at him and saw not just the millionaire fugitive, not just the mysterious stranger who had saved her life, but a man capable of tenderness, courage, and loyalty, and he, in turn, seemed to see her in a way no one ever had. Someone fearless, grounded, and alive, even amidst chaos. When they finally reached the edge of the trail, leading back to civilization, neither spoke immediately. Words felt inadequate. Ella knew this encounter would haunt her in the best possible way. Memories of snow firelight, danger, and intimacy. He squeezed her hand briefly, a silent acknowledgement of the bond they had formed in just one extraordinary night as they parted ways. Ella took one last look at him, the blizzard, the cabin, the danger. It had all been a crucible that brought them together. And though life would pull them in different directions, she knew some connections were too powerful to forget. Sometimes she realized survival wasn't just about staying alive. It was about discovering who could change your life in a single night.